Good evening, folks. It is Thursday night. It is 8 p.m. Eastern. It is time for your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast, and we have a packed weekend of events to cover that we got down with last week, and we got to break it all down because, my God, we had Saturday night's main event, AEW Double or Nothing, NXT Battleground. We'll get into what jumps out at us on all those shows because lots of stuff is happening in pro wrestling. Once we get through that, there's a big question this week. Kind of stems from what happened this weekend and what is coming up in July. Is WWE counter-programming AEW, and is that a problem? We'll get into that, and who knows what else, folks. We got a lot going on tonight, and we are so glad you're here. Stay with us. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast starts right now.
Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt. All I really want is that big old belt, 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 big old belt. All I really need that big old belt.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to your Big Old Belt Wrestling Podcast on this fine Thursday night. We are so glad you are here with us. Tonight, we got the two-man power trip in effect. A lot of the guys are busy tonight. There's basketball happening, and Damian might have a very bad evening ahead if the Knicks can't get it together. So, Damian, I'm pulling for you. I don't think Jamal is, but I'm pulling for you. We'll see what happens.
No, I'm not.
The guys are busy tonight, so we're going to hold things down here because there's a lot going on in pro wrestling. I am Will on the left side of your screen. To my right is the giant crab, Jamal. Jamal, how you doing this week?
I could be watching the Pacers, but you know what? I'm going to let the guys do that work, and we have work to do here. So it's a good time.
There you go. And actually, the way this goes, this next hour, we bang this out. I'm sure the game will be in the home stretch. There'll be plenty to see before the end of the night, I am sure.
The game might not be ending, but I hope it's over by the time we get done with this.
We will see. Damian, I'm keeping you in my thoughts tonight. There you go. All right. Let's go back to last weekend because we had a packed weekend of shows that we previewed last weekend. They've all happened now. So we're going to go through these because a lot happened between Saturday and Sunday in pro wrestling. So we'll start at the beginning. Saturday night's main event down in Tampa, Florida on NBC and Peacock was the first of the shows that happened last weekend. And I'm trying to remember, we were talking about this one last week. We talked a lot about John Cena and R-Truth. And I seem to remember talking a bunch about the cage match. And there was also kind of the question of what would main event and how they're going to lay this show out. And lo and behold, Jey Uso and Logan Paul closed the show, which I kind of thought would open. But that ended up closing. And I guess that kind of plays into, we had a big return. Cody Rhodes is back since WrestleMania. So we had a kind of a surprise there at the end. But, I guess the way I would describe that Saturday night's main event, I thought it was an inoffensive show. It was an easy 2-hour show to watch. Probably the biggest takeaway I think from a lot of folks is folks don't like them commercials on NBC. But NBC, network TV, they are going to make sure they get paid. And the commercials are going to be what they are. And yeah, it's annoying and it feels like there's more of them than on a regular broadcast, but what you going to do? It is what it is. But for me, I would say best match was probably the opener, the tag match with Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker against CM Punk and Sami Zayn. I thought that was a hell of a tag match to open the show. And everything else was fine. There wasn't anything offensive on it. Nothing bad. Zelina and Chelsea was a little rough around the edges. But a solid show. Nothing horrible, nothing amazing. But I thought it was okay. Any thoughts on Saturday night main event, Jamal?
So I didn't see the show. It was Memorial Day weekend. I was busy doing other things. But the question, of course, for me was Truth versus John Cena. How did that match play out? That was the most interesting match, for me. And was it not necessarily, it's not a marquee match, but did it live up to? Did they do what they need to do with it?
These Cena matches have been tricky because Cena is clearly limited. He is clearly feeling the miles that have been built up on him all these years. And whether it's, coming back from Hollywood or whatever, Cena's definitely a little slower these days. So the interesting part was you had R-Truth out there dressed up in full John Cena regalia as Ron Cena, and pretty much working Cena's whole shtick. And the funny part is he's doing it better than John Cena because John Cena's falling apart at this moment. So it kind of made me
I can get a Ron the Truth Cena, hustle, loyalty, and respect shirt at WWEshop.com.
I bet you they got him because he was definitely wearing one.
That up right now.
So hell yeah. It was a fun, and it's a key thing. Going into it, I saw people being like, why is R-Truth getting a title shot? Or it wasn't even a title match, it was just a match, but still, why is R-Truth getting this big match? I was like, it's Saturday's night's main event. It's a TV match. That's all it is. It's no big deal. It went 4 minutes and 25 seconds. It wasn't no big thing. It was entertaining, and that's all it needed to be. I thought it was perfect for what it was. I think just the biggest concern for me is just, God damn, Cena's feeling it. Cena is feeling it, and I'm just wondering more and more, like, how he's going to make it through this year, or possibly maybe he's starting to think, yeah, we got to get this done sooner. SummerSlam might be looking good because how Cena's going to be on SmackDown this week. He's already announced for Money in the Bank. Those dates are getting crossed off really quickly, quicker than I expected at this point. I'm wondering if there might be a specific reason for that now that he's back trying to do stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, we talked about it when he did his whole, 38 dates or something like that, and it was like, well, what could it possibly be? And 10 dates removed from that thing, and now we're down into the mid-20s at this point. It's got to be, and it's still like, well, there has to be some downtime. They're building up to a major pay-per-view, and then he's going to take July off, build up to SummerSlam. That's going to happen. Take August off. And then we're going to move through September, maybe. And then, we got a Saudi show at some point. That's got to happen. Survivor Series has got to happen. And then, of course, all of December, it's about him. So, there's plenty of opportunities to space this thing out. And since he's not in, like, a major feud that's carrying him through the summer, it really is just about making it to the next checkpoint. Not even making it to, December. Injuries, of course, notwithstanding. I think that his thing is just like, Jesus, let me just get to July 4th, or let me just get to Money in the Bank, and then and then we can we'll reassess. And then let me get to, because that's also a thing too. They haven't really committed to anything that is like locked in full time, etched in stone, and because of that, if he goes away for a month, or 6 weeks or something like that, because he needs to recharge or for whatever reason, then it's okay. Yeah, he has the belt. Nobody really necessarily needs that from him because they have the other belt. With the Uso has it, so it's okay if he takes 6 weeks off. We'll see you in August, and I think that they're really kind of spacing it out that way. But he's just going to make the 10-pole shows, and that's what we thought it was, and that's kind of what they're doing.
Yeah, there we go. And we're on the road now to Money in the Bank, which it's going to be next weekend. We'll be talking about next week. And so we already got set up now. Cena will get a little bit of a break. So he's going to do a tag match there. So it's going to be Cena and Logan Paul against Jey Uso and the returning Cody Rhodes. So tag match deal probably will be a little bit easier on Cena. He won't have to carry the whole load of things on that one. But after that, I would kind of think he's got to at least be on a break to Money in the Bank, or maybe even to SummerSlam at that point, or at least till the build to SummerSlam.
Yeah. There's got to be a built-in sabbatical for him, some kind of extended break, probably after a big match pay-per-view. And what's been the big matches that he had? He had a decent match with Orton, and then he's worked a couple of the shows, but it's really been about the moments. And the press conference, putting R-Truth through the table, and then he works a 5-minute match for Saturday Night Main Event. Then getting from town to town is also a thing too. So and he has a tag match at the pay-per-view. So it's not exactly like the most strenuous schedule. Hell, I think even Brock Lesnar's got to be at home going, wait a minute, they could have done that. I could have done that.
How do I get the retirement loot? With custom merch in each town. That's the thing. He's doing the whole it's the last time you're going to see me in Tampa. It's the last time you're going to see me here. So that's the name of the game with this whole thing.
Exactly. So, so I think it's, it's obviously, Cena's got to be pushing 50 at this point if he's not over that. So, it's definitely, and also Cena's pushing 50 and R-Truth is definitely 50 plus. And those two are not the same. but but still, they are definitely milking this thing for all it's worth, and it'll be interesting to see what that lasts in December. I still think I'm on track with my prediction that Cena takes the belt home but retires with it.
Yeah, I still like that.
Yeah.
I still like that idea. We're
seeing that more and more. The belt, the Usos belt, is not like it's gaining any traction per se, but it's not losing any value either. Yeah. And then, of course, whatever they want to do with Cena, because they're kind of just doing this thing on a tentative basis, a 6-week feud here, take a couple weeks off, and then we go into a 3-week feud here, build a pay-per-view or a PLE or a B+ show, Saturday night's main event, whatever. It doesn't necessarily have the prestige that it used to have, and it's kind of like, okay, well, if he takes the belt home, it's going to be no big deal. So, I think that tracks.
There we go. Anything else you want to say on Saturday night's main event? I got anything I wanted. I can move on to Double or Nothing at this point. All right, let's go to the next night. As this was, a lot of people would say this was the biggest show of the weekend, and that's definitely a case to be made for that. Sure. We had Double or Nothing the next night going down in Arizona, and as we well know, if it's an AEW show, there's going to be a bunch of matches, and they're going to go to after midnight. And from what I saw, at least it was, Memorial Day in the States next day. So it was a Sunday night show, but a lot of people had off the next day, and them pushing it to almost 12:30 was definitely
12:30. Are you serious?
That is what happened.
Good
Lord. Is what happened. They went late that show. I mean, hell, the main event went almost 37 minutes. Looking at the results here, I saw bits of this show. The main thing I saw, the opener, Mercedes and Jamie Hayter, hell of an opener as the finals of the Women's Owen Hart Cup.
That's tournament. Good to hear.
Yeah, they went 21 minutes. They got a good chunk of time. That was right on against the NXT show that we'll talk about in a bit. And hell of a match. Mercedes and Jamie was really damn good and lived up to any hype that I could have thought of for it. As far as the rest of this show, I think the big other match that God, I don't think you could be online this week and not see clips of this all over the place. The Anarchy in the Arena, as usual, was over the top ridiculousness, exploding tables, fireworks, extracurricular stuff, you name it. They're going to do all kinds of crazy stuff with Anarchy in the Arena, and that lived up to the hype as always. Got 35 minutes on that one. The main thing on this show for me was, from what I did see of it, lots of matches that went really damn long. I was watching the FTR match with FTR against Daniel Garcia and Nigel McGuinness, and that one went way longer than it needed to. That one I was watching that night, and that's kind of where I started like, damn, this show is gonna. That's where you can kind of tell from the beginning it was gonna be a late night. That's only the second match on the main card, and that went 22. So
God. After a 21-minute match.
Yeah, exactly. They started long. Yeah, God, looking at the times here, shortest thing was like 12 minutes.
That's still a pretty damn good, amount of time.
Yeah, there's a lot of long darn stuff on this show, but they definitely had. I gotta see Tony Storm and Mina Shirakawa. I haven't got around to seeing that one, but they pretty much I saw Anarchy in the Arena that ended, and then they tried to bring out the Paragon, which is Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong against the Don Callis family. And I was like, oh, absolutely not. That's where I was done. Right. I was done. Because that's when it was pushing midnight, and it was like, oh.
It was pushing midnight at that point?
Here. Well, I was past 11. That was past 11.
God.
And so I was like, the main event ain't even here yet. And you're trying to follow Anarchy in the Arena with the Paragon and the Don Callis family. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Well, I mean, to be fair, they need to put something in that cool down spot after you have, such a high impact match, no matter what the match was. And it could have been, Mercedes versus Hayter. I know it went first, but even if that match was the highly anticipated, I think it was the Women's Owen Hart Cup final. Right. Even if that match absolutely tore down the house, okay, cool. You can't just go right into the main event. Now, what I will say is that I'm kind of surprised that Anarchy in the Arena wasn't the main event, because it wasn't like a world championship match was on the line.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. No, looking at it, the AEW tag team, the women's championship and the continental championship were the only titles in contention on the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Other stuff had stipulations for future matches at different shows.
Yeah.
But
the
it was still
final closed the show.
Yeah. Right. So the women's cup final opened it, the men's cup final ended it, and the winner goes on to All In July. And cool. That's fine. But if it's Anarchy in the Arena and you have Team Heel versus Team Face, and this is like the big blow off to whatever that feud is, I'm kind of surprised that for a bunch of logistical reasons that didn't close the show. Especially considering who's in the match for Team Face and Team Heel. Unless something happened after the bell of the Paige versus Ospreay match, I'm just kind of surprised that was the actual main event.
Yeah, I think they were going with the idea of, well, we're gonna have the big work rate, set up the all-in main event title match at the end, since we don't have the title on the line on this show, since Mox was in, the Death Riders Anarchy in the Arena thing. It was like, okay, we got him off to the side. He's not involved in like defending the title tonight. So I guess my thinking is just the idea was have all the focus at the end be on, okay, now we know our main event for Texas. Now we know the main event for the big stadium show, and put all the focus there.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. But that's also in July. And, if it's going to be Paige versus Moxley, assuming that Moxley still has the belt at that time, it is still kind of like, cool, but it's not like the blow off. That's, the continuation of whatever this is going to be over the next 2 months between here and the middle of July. And with Anarchy in the Arena, it's the two mega factions, coming together and spending 35 minutes, good Lord, tearing the house down. I have not seen that. I didn't see the show, to be honest with you. Mets and Dodgers were on at that time, and I also wanted to get to bed at a reasonable hour. When I peeked at it, so that's what I did. I peeked at Wikipedia to see where they had updated, and this was at about 10:30 Eastern, and they had gotten up to, I think, Storm versus Shirakawa.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and then when I said, well, wait a minute, Anarchy in the Arena hasn't started, and it's after 10 o'clock. This show is going to end until midnight, and apparently it went past that. So, that is a long show. Now let me ask you this though, because it's easy to sit here and say, because I didn't watch it, so it's easy to sit here and say how long is too long. But to be fair, I remember as a kid watching these 45-minute matches in ECW with Rob Van Dam versus Shane Douglas, or the Dudley Boys, or Tajiri versus Super Crazy in a heavy work rate 45-minute spectacle, or some Chris Candido versus Mike Awesome. And I remember thinking, a 15-year-old me going, this is the greatest match of all time.
Right. And
I still think it is. So I wonder, and you can, you out there, you're watching, especially if you're younger, if you're newer to AEW or to their style of wrestling, which is very anti-WWE. Not, in a physical sense, but it's like in a WWE is a very, has a very stoic and style of wrestling. It is what it is. It's going to fit in between these boxes. Okay, cool. It is, people like it. Fine. But a 35-minute long main event in WWE for anything is few and far in between nowadays. And that's kind of what AEW has, set their bread and butter on, high impact, high work rate, this spectacle, this is what it's going to be, versus more of the pageantry that WWE does. So I wonder, to you guys watching out there, if you're seeing between the two, if you are older and you remember these 40-minute classics either on the Indies or ECW or whatever, or hell, even in old WWE, or before the year 2000 WWE, where Brett and Shawn would put on a 35-minute classic, or The Undertaker would go 28 minutes for no reason. Does that feel? Does it feel different now? Because when I see a 30-minute match between Adam Page and Will Ospreay, I just go, God damn.
Yeah.
But I'm also 40, so
right.
Is that me getting old? Yes. Or is it just like it doesn't feel this 35, 36, 56 doesn't feel the same today that it did in 1997?
Lord knows the pacing is different of a 36-56 in 2025 than it was in the 90s. That's the big difference for my end. It's just they pace everything so different that it's just like there's so much more going on in a match and so much more being thrown at each other where it's like it becomes overkill for me personally. Right. But I said that's us being old. That's the thing. We're used to how a certain level of stuff, and I don't know. It is what it is. If you're younger and you don't have anything to compare it to, then you're like, yeah, this is what I'm used to seeing. A lot of these matches look more like a video game as opposed to the matches that we're like used to seeing back in the day. But I don't know. That's us being old. I will freely admit that. That's just a matter of personal taste and is what it is.
Yeah, fair.
Any other thoughts on All In? I mean, a Double or Nothing. Not all.
Okay, so I don't know. I didn't see what the reference was, but I keep seeing talk about the greatest women's match of all time.
Okay.
What match were they referring to? I'm not entirely sure. Is it Mercedes versus Hayter?
I would think it'd be Mercedes and Jamie. I would think so, but
because that's kind of like the talking points that I'm seeing coming out of Double or Nothing. Is that this is the greatest women's match of all time. And not that couldn't be true ever, because, they have hell of talent in AEW in the women's option. But all time is a stretch.
Yeah, I haven't seen people going that far with it. So you're seeing something different than I am. I've seen the match definitely being praised, but I haven't seen the all-time moniker being put on.
Okay, fair enough. If I find an example, I'll send it to you. But yeah.
The algorithm brings up different things. We know how that works.
Right. I praise the algorithm.
There you go. All right, so let's get to the last show of the weekend. Of course, now this was running against Double or Nothing. So I was kind of flipping back and forth between the two, depending on what matches were happening at the time. And Lord knows this did not go till after midnight. This did not go till after 12:30. NXT Battleground, which was also in Tampa, since we had Saturday night's main event in Tampa. You had this in Tampa, and also we had Raw the next night with WWE doing their weekend residency there. We had on here, now this was, God, talking about, in a lot of ways, the women kind of owned the damn weekend. Sol Ruka and Kalani Jordan opened NXT Battleground, and they had a hell of a match for the North American title. Really, really damn fun match there, opened the show. Really enjoyed that one. And then we all talked about it last week. Stephanie Bakir, Jordan Grace for the NXT Women's Championship. That was the other big match we were really, really curious about. That went on in the middle of the show. I was kind of surprised they didn't close with it, but as we'll find out in a second, there's definitely a specific reason how they did the main event on this show. But Stephanie and Jordan was everything I hoped it could be, and probably even more. It was really, really damn good, hard-hitting match. Killed it, those two. Can't wait to see them do it again, and I'm sure they will soon, Lord knows. So the surprise for me was that match ended, and I was like, okay, that leaves the NXT title match, and then also for the first time ever, we had the TNA title being defended on here. And we had the twist thrown at us that Obafemi and Miles Bourne for the NXT title went on next, and then they closed the show with the TNA title in the main event spot with Trick Williams and Joe Hendry. And as we kind of expected last week, Trick Williams gets the win. He is now your new TNA champion. So they ended the show with, like, they played, I'll give them this. We talked before, back when we had the TNA and AEW crossover, we talked about how much emphasis was going to be put on TNA. It's something we talked about a lot. How much was TNA going to get out of it? How much rub did they get out of it? How much on the same level did they get treated? They main evented this show, and they made the TNA title on an NXT show out to be a very big deal. They treated it as like a historical moment, as like a very big thing, significant event to be happening. So props to them. I thought it was really cool how they did that. And like that crowd in Tampa seemed to really buy into it. And Trick has the title now. As we're doing this show, Impact is on right now. So Trick will have his first night as a TNA champion on a TNA show. And we go from here. But Trick Williams, TNA champion, and Battleground was a fun show. I thought it was really just moved really well. Just about 2.5 hours like these WWE shows have been lately. And no complaints from me on Battleground. I thought it was fun.
Yeah. This is exactly what I said that I would like to see happen last week. Trick Williams winning, beating Joe Hendry for the TNA title, because of what I said last week also was, hey, now you got to watch TNA. Right. Now you got to watch both to see what's going on. Now we have, and they do this a lot in comics where the continuity crosses over between issues and between characters and stuff like that. So if you want to follow the story, you can't just pick up Iron Man. You have to get the Fantastic Four issue also. And you can't just pick up that. You got to pick up an X-Men run also, because the story continues on. And this is what we were hoping for with the AEW TNA collaboration. This is obviously far from what we got. And of course, no harm, no foul. Yes, from a historical standpoint, Trick Williams gets his name thrown in there with some of the greatest of all time. Full stop. As a TNA champion. Also, Joe Hendry without the belt creates, of course, an interesting proposition for him. Where does he go from here? Because yes, the TNA NXT or NXT collaboration has been great. Could that happen on the main roster where we see Joe Hendry loaned in like a soccer, kind of a thing to SmackDown, or loaned to Raw?
Hey,
and
man was on WrestleMania, so why not?
Exactly. But WrestleMania, isn't a brand. Well, some would argue that it is, but it isn't a brand. And to come up in a meaningful way and say like, hey, yeah, Trick Williams has our belt, and I'll get that back eventually, but I might be taking the U.S. Championship with me, or whatever. Back to TNA. And that, of course, helps Joe Hendry stock. It helps TNA stock. But it also helps WWE stock because, hey, it gives the fans an opportunity to see something that we've literally never seen before. We haven't seen a major cross-promotion collaboration with WWE, and I would argue since the early 90s when they did stuff with the Japanese. Mm-hmm. I can't think of another major collaboration with another company in a meaningful way like this on WWE television.
Yeah, where it's been so significantly part of the show and gone on for this many months.
Right, and that's kind of been the most surprising thing is that like, well, when will this end now? What does an end game look like for this partnership where we just kind of go, all right, back to your corners. We'll see you guys for TNA season, next April, but. Right. I don't see this happening forever. It can't happen forever. It should end to preserve its meaningfulness or its impact. See what I did there? But it's also, but damn, they seem to add another wrinkle. Just when you think the TNA season's going to come to an end, they have another wrinkle, and I like what they're doing with it because now, TNA. It's real. You gotta tune in. If you really want to know what's going on, you gotta tune in. And also, it gives something for Trick to do because they don't have space for him in the main roster right now in a meaningful way. They could obviously insert him anywhere. Yeah, but if he wants to come in and make an impact, who is his ready-made feud? Who's his ready-made storyline? How will they introduce him? I don't think they have to. They're not rushing to do that right now, obviously. So him kind of being the flag boy for WWE in TNA as the TNA champion is a hell of a stopgap before he goes to the main roster.
Yeah, I'd say it's a good testing ground to be like, okay, we're gonna make you the guy on another show in a whole different area, and let's see how that goes. Let's see how you sink or swim in front of a completely different environment. You're not just coming out here in the damn performance center. You're going to wherever Impact's taping their random shows at, and so yeah, it's a completely different mix. It's definitely interesting, and it's definitely makes for unique TV. So
yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying that it needs to happen at every facet of the WWE championship or the NXT championship level, but it is interesting that they went with that belt. They didn't try this with a lower level belt. They didn't send the North American champion or anything like that. They didn't bring back a retired belt like the Cruiserweight Championship or anything like that. They said, no, we're sending the champion, which kind of elevates the entirety of the scope of the entire deal. So yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how they move from here.
There we go. And as we saw this week on NXT on Tuesday, we already have Mike Santana from TNA already kind of staking his claim and showing up on at the Performance Center and kind of making it clear that looks like he's got his eye on Trick, and that looks like it might be our first big challenge there for Trick, as we got Mike Santana, LAX, showing up. So that's fun as hell. That's a match we've never had before. It's a completely different deal. It's someone who has not made the crossover yet, so it's fresh and on every darn front. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's do this. We are at our halfway point. Let's take our quick mid-show break, and when we come back, we'll talk about it happened this weekend. It's been announced it's going to be happening again in July. There's a lot of WWE, as people are saying, counter-programming AEW events. Is this really an issue? Let's take a look at what's coming up. We'll get into that when we get back, folks. Stay with us. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. We'll be back right after this.
Looking to get your brand in front of people who eat, sleep, and breathe entertainment? Big Gold Belt Media is the place to be. We're all about reporting on movies, TV shows, conventions, and everything in between. And we want your brand to be a part of the action. Partnering with us means your sponsorships get featured right in the midst of our content. Plus, we're going to hype you up on all of our social media, connecting you with an audience that loves discovering new things from trusted voices in entertainment. We're easy to find. Just look for us on Big Gold Belt on all your social media platforms. Don't wait, reach out today, and let's start building something amazing together. Your spotlight is waiting here at Big Gold Belt Media, biggoldbelt.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast on this fine Thursday night. As we were talking about before in the first half, we had a bunch of shows this past weekend. We had WWE, we had AEW, we had NXT running directly against AEW Double or Nothing. WWE took over Tampa for the weekend, while AEW was out in Arizona. And it's maybe becoming a trend, because we had announced this week that, so our next big AEW show, of course, is All In, down in Texas, at the stadium. Their big show of the year. We've had that announced for quite a while. God, they probably announced that back in honestly, maybe in the fall?
Yeah.
It was a while ago that they had it all set up. Because we knew they weren't going to Wembley again. They got that out of the way and told us they were going to go to Texas. So
they announced Wembley, but they didn't announce All In, and then they announced All In.
Yeah. There you go. That's right. All right. So date's been in the books forever. Been set to go. Going to happen in the middle of the day, just like how Wembley did and all this. And some people were immediately speculating that might be happening because WWE might try to do something that night. Well, now we know what they're doing. They have made their move. So Atlanta is going to be the destination. They did Tampa for this weekend. They will be taking over Atlanta in a much similar fashion. So we are going to have 3 events happening in Atlanta that weekend. Saturday and Sunday, just like last time. There will be yet another Saturday night's main event happening at the State Farm Arena on the night of July 12th. The next day, Sunday the 13th, is when All In happens that afternoon. That afternoon will also be happening, just like it did on this past week. NXT Great American Bash from the Center Stage Theater that afternoon directly against All In. Skip forward to that night, Sunday night, and here's where it gets interesting. They're pulling out the big guns. They're pulling out something unique. They're pulling out something people have been waiting for quite a while. WWE Evolution returns that night after All In Atlanta. So the all-women show that has only happened once before will happen again, but in Atlanta the same day as All In. So this begs the question. A lot of people crying foul. A lot of people saying this is counter-programming. This isn't fair. They're just doing it to mess with them. I don't know. Crab, I'm going to go to you first. But hearing the way this is laid out, this is our second time now. They just did it in Tampa. They're going to do it again now in Atlanta. I mean, me being an old fan, this don't surprise me at all. This is right out of their playbook. This is how they operate. So I'm not surprised. But seeing what they're pulling out here, what do you think? The evolution part is what jumps out the most to me.
So let me get this straight. So AEW is going to have All In at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. local time, noon out on the West Coast. And it's going to be on Saturday, July 12th. And I don't know what the UFC is doing that night, but you could argue that they probably kind of had Saturday nights on lock for a long time. I'm
sure they have a show, probably.
I'm sure they have a show, probably. So back initially when we were talking about this, it was like, okay, fine. That makes sense. They pushed it up from, a 6 p.m. start or something like that to 2 in the afternoon. No problem. Love a good matinee show. Hell, would be more inclined to watch it.
Absolutely.
And then you had Ring of Honor. They're doing a show in the Arlington area. And then something else is happening in the Arlington area for AEW as well. No problem. WWE says, all right, we're going to do a bunch of different shows in the Atlanta area. Are they counter-programming? Absolutely. Like, there's no doubt about the fact that they're counter-programming. The question is why. Mm-hmm. And the easy, obvious answer would be, well, AEW is WWE's really only viable competition. All of their other competition are either too small to care about, or they're literally working with them like they are with TNA. They bought AAA. They're working with TNA. And they don't really give a shit about anybody else. And they're counter-programmed with AEW. I mean, that is zone defense if I've ever seen it before. So they do have all of their things covered. And even if they do seed the evening to a UFC event, well, hell, they can still start the show at 7 o'clock and then roll that right into a UFC event where the main card usually doesn't start to 10, all times Eastern. They're absolutely counter-programming. And isn't the All-Star game that weekend for baseball?
Is it?
Wait a minute.
Uh-oh. Take a look. Is it the weekend of the 12th and 13th?
I want to. Well, it's definitely in July, the All-Star game.
It's not that weekend. It's probably the weekend after.
Let me look really.
The weekend before is the weekend of the 4th, so it can't be then.
Yeah, it is All-Star weekend. So.
Oh my God, there's gonna be so much going on that damn weekend.
Yeah, the All-Star Futures game is the 12th. So when is the game itself? Yeah, the All-Star game is Tuesday. So for baseball, it is All-Star weekend in Atlanta. So yes, the All-Star game itself is Tuesday. The Home Run Derby is Monday, but All-Star weekend events will be happening that weekend outside of Atlanta in Cumberland, Georgia, where the Braves play at Truist Park. So
Georgia's going to be a destination that weekend.
Georgia's absolutely. Oh my God, Damien, if you're watching this,
he said he was
your car now.
Tickets. He said he was looking for Evolution tickets.
He said he was looking for Evolution tickets, dude. Rent your car now, because good luck getting out of Hartsfield that weekend with all of the Hartsfield's a mess anyway. You got the All-Star game festivities happening all that weekend. You got WWE taking over the arenas downtown. Book your shit early.
And I'll add one more wrinkle to it because people were freaking out about this online. Beyonce's playing there that weekend in the stadium.
At the Mercedes-Benz?
Yes.
Book it early. If you're trying to get to Atlanta that weekend, pack your patience. Don't fly into Hartsfield. Good luck. Godspeed. Yeah. You'll need it.
It's going to be nuts. It's going to be nuts.
I
didn't know about the All-Star game shit. Everyone was talking about Beyonce online. Like, how are they going up against Beyonce? I was like, I think they'll be okay. It's different audiences.
Yeah, I mean, Beyonce
is Beyonce's doing multiple dates there. It's not like she's just doing the one night.
But even if she weren't, it's not like it's a live Netflix special or something like that that night. It's just a concert, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So now the question is, if you're AEW, who announced their events, way back when, did you not know that you were going up against the All-Star game that weekend? Now, or the All-Star events that weekend for baseball, because if you're talking about what are the people going to be focused on in mass that weekend, they're going to be focused on the UFC event. They're going to be focused on baseball festivities because it is the All-Star break. That's going to be a thing. Games are happening up until Sunday, and then the home run derby's Monday, and then the All-Star break is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I think, for baseball. So there will still be games happening, but either way, the All-Star festivity starts Saturday. The point is that if you're AEW, why don't you schedule it that weekend?
And that was before WWE even came. I was like, hey, that was right. Shit too.
Like Beyonce notwithstanding, WWE notwithstanding, why would you schedule your major event the weekend of the All-Star, like the weekend of baseball's festivities? Okay, fine. They moved it to 2:00. Even if they're counter-programming, does it hurt AEW to move their show to the early afternoon? For whatever reason that they did it, whether it's because of baseball, whether it's because of Beyonce, whether it's because of the WWE, I still think putting the show on in the afternoon is actually a good damn look because of the fact that if the show goes from 3 until 8, that is a hell of a difference between 7 to midnight or 7 to 12:30.
If you're going to do these long shows, and we know their biggest show of the year is going to be a long show, please do it in the afternoon. No, I completely agree on that one. God.
Right. And I have no problem with that whatsoever. And that's also kind of a thing. Wait a minute. Okay, selfishly, this actually works out much better because Alexandria's fireworks are the 12th. Yeah, so I will be on the riverfront in beautiful downtown Old Town Alexandria, Virginia, celebrating the city's birthday. There's cake. But that's serious. Founders Park. It's a great time. But that's great because I get to watch Double or Nothing, and then I get to head to the park for the fireworks. But it's just kind of like, so what if they're counter programming? Maybe it would be smarter for AEW to not just reveal their hand so early. I think they have enough of a fan base where they can kind of just announce a show and say, this is what it's going to be, more details to come, and it is what it is. We were talking about this last week. I don't think it matters what WrestleMania is because it's WrestleMania. And if WWE puts the full weight of WrestleMania behind the show, they can have it in a barn in Iowa. It doesn't matter. It's WrestleMania. It's going to be the show of shows because WWE marketing will not let it be anything other than the show of shows. So AEW, I think, can, on that level, do something like that and say, like, no, this is All In. And All In for years has been our second biggest show that we run all year. It's going to be at the stadium in Arlington, Texas. And we're just not going to tell you what day it is yet. Did they have to tell us, 3 or 4 months ago? Maybe they could have told us now, this weekend, for things to happen. But it's also Texas in July. There are a lot of logistical things and a lot of logistical second guessing that they could have done. I think moving the show to the early afternoon for a number of different reasons is a very good idea, and I 100% support that, regardless of what's running counter to them. And honestly, if we get a good show that we can watch in its entirety and not feel like dog shit in the morning afterwards because it ends at, well after midnight on a work night,
right?
Then counter program all day long WWE. Put a TNA show on.
Well, and that's just it. People are going on about them, they're just messing with them. This is petty. And it's like, if you want bad, if you want petty, they've done far worse than this.
100%.
They're running Atlanta and AEW's running over in Texas. They're running in Arlington.
Yes.
If WWE wanted to be petty and play from their dirtiest plays, they'd be running in Texas in the same town either the night before or the same day. They'd come to the same market and really mess with them. This is like, okay, at least they're like, in a different time zone and shit. It's like,
remember
you
when
want to play
WWE
dirty. They've done this before. Done far worse.
Remember when WWE used to have a 50-mile perimeter where you couldn't run a wrestling show?
Yeah.
If they
take out all the buildings, yep.
Yeah. No, so like part of the agreement of whatever show, let's just say WrestleMania. If we bring it to City X, you can't run a licensed wrestling show within 50 miles of City X.
Yeah.
Per the agreement with the city.
And so many days before and so many days after.
Exactly.
I mean, block out a huge chunk of the calendar.
So the WWE, lawyer group, definitely has tricks up their sleeve, and yes, even though they did our counter programming, because I think the NXT has a show that afternoon as well.
Yeah, NXT is going to go directly against All In.
Right.
Same.
Right. So yeah, NXT has a Great American Bash, I want to say.
Yes. Great American Bash will be directly against All In, and then Evolution will be on that night after all.
Right. And that's also a thing too. Yes, it is technically counter programming. But they're not exactly throwing their heaviest punch either.
No.
Because they could have moved Money in the Bank to that weekend. They could have done a bunch of, and obviously they could have run a city in Dallas, because of course Dallas and Arlington are not the same place. They could have run Dallas and Fort Worth and just taken, the complete wind out of the sails. There's a number of things that they can do, especially with the TKO partnership, to kind of like dig their heels into AEW. But after a certain point, it just doesn't matter anymore. No matter what you're a fan of, and there's two things about that. If you are a fan of all of it, you can watch everything later. If you have your Peacock subscription, then you'll watch it later. If you don't, then you don't. If I think that there's space for everything. It just is the world that we live in now, where streaming or on demand or DVRs, if you still have one, is just kind of like the way of the world, because there will always be something on. Because if you are in Atlanta and you damn, not only are the All-Star Game festivities happening and Beyonce's happening, and there's bare knuckle brawling at the Waffle House down the street, but WWE's coming to town.
Yeah.
Which one do I go to? Well, you go to one and you stream the rest.
Yeah, you see the rest later. It's an on-demand world. This is not 1988, 1989, when I was a kid and WCW ran the Clash of Champions directly against WrestleMania. So you had that on TBS, you had WrestleMania on pay-per-view, right against each other at the same time. We didn't have DVRs, so you had to pick one. And then the other one, maybe one of your friends, if you were lucky, they recorded the other one and you could see it later. Or you just have to see the highlights. But there was no on-demand checking it out later. It was like they were on against each other. Maybe you were lucky you had 2 TVs and 2 cable boxes if you were real lucky,
Yeah, I mean, like if you were that friend, you were rich. But also, I think it really is just a sign of us getting old. Because to be fair, we lived through and survived the Monday Night Wars.
Yeah.
Where they were literally counter-programming every single Monday night.
Yep.
And to the actual second, because Raw had the 5-minute overrun, and WCW, when they went to 3 hours, ended at 10:59.
Yep.
And then you would peek at, and then they would schedule certain things. I remember it too many times because I was watching WCW, where I would turn on USA Network, and then just in time to hear Jim Ross say, "Hey, for those of you just joining us from the other show, this is what's going on."
Yeah.
or whatever the case is. And of course, we know how that backfired when Bischoff gave the word that Foley was going to win the belt because that Raw was taped, and
Yeah.
people jumped from Nitro to Raw and watched that live or as it aired, and that was a huge misstep for Bischoff. So I mean, it's okay. It's not counter programming in the sense that like this is evil and bully politics and stuff like that. It's just like that's the business.
Yeah. The long history of it. It is what it is. And at the end of the day, it comes down to this. If you want to compete, if you want to be competition, you can't get upset when people treat you like competition. It goes both ways. It's a two-way street.
The kids don't even know about the territory days.
Yeah.
They don't know about like how a show would counter another show with a guy because all of these things are just house shows and stuff like that. But back when we had like regional wrestling on television, a rival territory would run a show in your town at the time that the big show was on TV.
Yeah.
Because you got to pick, like Ric Flair's coming to town, or you can watch Maryland Championship Wrestling. You got to pick one. Because Rick didn't run, MCW. He ran, WCCW or something like that. And it's just like, yeah. And nowadays, it's just like, they're being mean.
It's like, you can watch it later. It's like, you can have that on-demand option. It's all good.
Yeah. But also, I mean,
it makes me laugh seeing people get so worked up about it.
But also, to be fair, a competition should create better business. And if that means that AEW needs to step their game up to bring more eyes to their product at the time, then that's what they're going to have to do. If that means that NXT is going to have to step their product up to steal eyes from AEW at the time, then that's what they're going to have to do. There are too many avenues for too many interests at any given one at a time. So I'm not just a fan of this. I'm a fan of a bunch of different things, and I'm going to have to make a decision as a fan of all of those things to do or not do. And selfishly, I'm not doing any of those things because I will be in Alexandria watching the damn fireworks, eating cupcakes. So
there you go. And you can check it out later.
There's always something else.
Yep. There you go. All right. I think we nailed that one. It's been funny to me this week to seeing like people cannot handle that idea that they're putting shows against them. That isn't right. So it is what it is. We've seen far worse.
But then you got to remember when Raw invaded Nitro in Norfolk, and that's got to be 25 years ago at this point.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Different time.
Yeah, it's a totally different time.
Definitely more than 25 years ago. Father Time is marching on.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Absolutely.
Is there any little quick stuff you want to hit? We got a few minutes left here before we'll do a wrap.
Yeah. So real quickly, people are worried about Adam Cole. Apparently, he may have been injured on Dynamite. Hopefully not, because you don't really want to see someone injured. But the argument, of course, is Cole cursed? If he is injured again, what would they use him for in AEW? Mm-hmm. And of course, that's been unfortunate that people have been snake bit. Haven't seen too much of Keith Lee. I don't know if he's still with the company or not, but that's been unfortunate that he's been injured and then just kind of fallen into the abyss. I have no idea what intensive care unit Scorpio Sky is in, but haven't seen him in forever. I hope that he's not injured and he's just waiting to come back. And then Cole, if he actually is injured again, which would be another massive setback after being down for so long, that would be unfortunate. But then the question is, what do you do with him? There was so much promise when Cole came over, and we saw glimpses of that, early on. And now, if he's just not going to make it to that point where we were getting 2016, 2017 Adam Cole, what do you do with him?
Yeah. Commentary or something. I mean,
I don't know. I mean, that's unfortunate. And the last thing, it is interesting. It is interesting how people spend their time. Jonathan Coachman, I have no idea why he's barking up this tree. But he says, and I quote, I've been quoted a lot from the show last week everywhere because I have conversations. People trust me. People call me. I talk to them because I don't treat this like the end-all be-all. And one thing I've yet to be wrong about, anything. And now all of a sudden, I'm getting all these websites and I have educated views. And I have a lot of people that are tipping me off. Now, do I know 100% he's going to buy WWE? I know he wants to. Listen, I don't know what multiverse there is where this is a possibility. Vince ain't coming back.
No.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Just stop it. Get some help.
Until this legal shit goes away, there's no chance at all. And TKO ain't selling. It ain't.
Right.
First hurdle has happened. The legal shit would have to go away some way or another. And then even if it did, it'd have to be some scenario like we had that rumor before that the Saudi prince was going to back him and like open up the checkbook of oil money to buy the company for him, because by himself he ain't got that money to buy it from TKO.
It's just not going to happen. So there is that, but also you got to understand that Vince McMahon is the Pete Rose of wrestling for WWE right now. No matter what you think of who Pete Rose was as a player, and you can look up his numbers, hell of a player, should be a Hall of Famer, obviously is not because of transgressions. And it took a literal shift in actual American culture for Pete Rose's name to be talked about being inducted to the Hall of Fame, because he got busted for gambling on baseball, and then now everybody has a sports book. So gambling has been, destigmatized. So what's the big deal? Let them in. Everybody gambles. Until we live in the world where the purge is real and sexual assault is a misdemeanor, Vince ain't coming back.
Yeah.
When R. Kelly is president and he, decriminalizes rape, that's the only multiverse I see Vince coming back. Otherwise, it ain't going to happen. Stop it.
Very good point. Very good point. Yeah, I saw that going around. I was like, Coach, what are you talking about?
Right.
He's looking for some clickbait clicks to fill his pockets, I guess.
Well, whatever you got to do. But good, just stop.
Something of that sort.
So let me ask you this real quick while we have a couple seconds. Raw is, not Raw, but WWE is running the big show in Los Angeles, where they're doing their thing with the AAA show and the NXT show.
Right. Yes. Yes. Money in the Bank.
What would the reaction be if AEW decides to counter program that?
They should do it. Why not?
Well, 100%, they should do it.
Run an ROH show or whatever. Absolutely, they should. Go to LA and run Ring of Honor that afternoon or something. It's a two-way street.
It is.
Go for it.
It is. 100%.
Shoot your shot.
I'm not saying that they couldn't do it, but if AEW says we're booking a 4-hour-long collision at Staples Center, tickets go on sale this week, because I think the show is coming up like within the next week or two.
Next weekend. We'll be talking about it next week.
Yeah. So if AEW says Saturday night we're running Collision live from Staples Center or whatever they call it now.
Yeah.
Tickets go on sale Monday. Yeah. Turnabout's fair play. So get it done.
Yeah. Counter programming can work both damn ways, folks.
Yeah,
there
absolutely.
you go. All right, let's wrap this one up. This is a packed one, and like I just said, next week we'll be talking about Money in the Bank and the AAA Worlds Collide show, because these shows just keep coming, and there'll be more next week.
Yeah, I thought they were scaling back one of these premium events, but apparently
no. I think we get a little bit of a break after next week, because I think after next week there's a break for a couple weeks till I think there's a Saudi show at the end of June, maybe. I don't know. I'll check, but I think after next week there's a little bit of a break, but we will see. As I said at the beginning, folks, your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast is here each and every Thursday night, streaming live 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, on Twitch, here on X. You name it, we're streaming live anywhere we can get the signal up. Afterwards, the feed still lives on YouTube, so if you're looking to join the video feed after the fact, it stays on YouTube, and you can check it out there. Podcast version drops shortly thereafter, so if you want audio, we have that for you on all podcast platforms. So lots of ways to tune in and check us out here at Big Gold Belt Media. On the web, on the social medias and all that, you can find us at Big Gold Belt across the board, whether that's Instagram, Twitter, X, Blue Sky, you name it, at Big Gold Belt is where you can find us. And last but not least, on the web, www.biggoldbelt.com is where you can find us, the home of Big Gold Belt Media, wrestling, movies, comics, and more. As we head on Memorial Day weekend here, Crab, what do we got? Well, what's happening movie-wise, entertainment-wise? We did all this wrestling and sports talk.
Yeah.
What else is going on?
So if you haven't seen Lilo and Stitch or Mission Impossible, they're still there for you this weekend. Karate Kid Legends with Jackie Chan, Ralph Macchio, and the kid Ben Wong opens this weekend. Hear good things about that. If you're into horror movies, Bring Her Back is from the guys that did Talk to Me. If you like your Australian horror movies, seek help. You're a sick fuck. But they're coming out with a new movie, Bring Her Back, and it looks absolutely bananas. That's not. I don't need that stress in my life, but if you're in the horror movies, that may be one that you want to pick up. Also, there's a small movie called Tornado. Japanese woman in like feudal Japan. Her home gets ransacked by marauders, and on the strength of her father, she's going to murder them all. So, Tornado looks pretty interesting as well. That's pretty much it until next week. And then you have the John Wick spinoff, Ballerina, comes out on the 6th. And then, of course, the summer really gets going, after that. So there's definitely something out there for everyone. There's a couple of Vietnamese horror movies out there, and Vietnamese are insane. So, if you look hard enough, you'll find something in the theater this weekend. But, yeah, definitely Karate Kid. Definitely Tornado for me. Bring Her Back if you're a horror fan. And then, of course, the other stuff that's been out there. They're, continuing weeks. Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible 8.
There you go. I took the daughter this past week to the new Final Destination, and that was a lot of fun. She was all about it.
That was not what I thought you were going to say.
See, we are at the point now where it's like, okay, the horror stuff is like, you can watch the horror stuff as long as like we're watching it with you. And she's able to handle it. So that was the first actually going to the theater, her first R-rated experience in the theater and not at home. So big fan of the new Final Destination. It was good.
To be fair, the Final Destination movie, and I did like it. I think the story punches well above its weight. Mm-hmm. But I will say that the deaths are AEW-esque in that the setup and then the setup and then the setup and then the payoff, and then you go, oh, goddamn. This is so ridiculous, but accurate, but also very ridiculous.
I had a lot of good laughs during that movie, those kill scenes.
Yeah.
I was having a good old time. That was our Memorial Day.
And ironically, the government's going to do away with the penny, as they should if you've seen Final Destination.
There you go. There you go. Good point. All right, folks. There you go. Some movie recommendations here from your friends at Big Gold Belt Media. Lots of stuff you can check out there. Lots of shows this weekend. God, we're packed with stuff. So next Thursday, 8 p.m., we hope you are back here with us. We'll be talking about Money in the Bank. We'll be talking about the Worlds Collide show. Who knows what else will be happening in wrestling by then. But we'll be here next Thursday night talking about it. So in the meantime, hit that subscribe button, like, all that good stuff so you know when we're streaming live. And we'll see you next week, folks. Thursday night. Hope to see you then. Talk to you later.